At the temple, a mother presented her crying, wounded child before the candidate saintess, pleading that she heal him from a monster attack. The healing magic gleamed brightly, like a shining miracle, and our saint, Lua Ristot, smiles, waving them off. However, they didn't know the miracles she granted came at a cost for her. The temple was a place for the injured and sick to seek the saintess's healing powers. A candidate saint's duty was to heal them, logically. However, despite Lua's diligent work, her cohorts mocked her because her healing functioned only by transferring the other person's ailments to herself. The concept of suffering to heal sounded absurd. Nonetheless, they knew she had no choice, unlike themselves, murmuring her nickname, the Broken Saintess. Lua knew she was defective. Absorbing ailments and healing herself was the only way she knew how to make things work. But she wanted to repay the temple for taking her in after losing her family and becoming an orphan. As long as she could heal someone, she was willing to bear it. And there was also a power she'd been hiding that was completely useless. Arian Trebius then suddenly grabbed Lua, praising her for her excellent work today. Arian doted over Lua, telling her not to take the other saints' nonsensical talk to heart. She recognized how hard Lua worked to fulfill the duties of a saintess. Lua was tearful with relief, because without Arian, she felt like she wouldn't last here. Arian then pointed towards the dashing Sir Garrett Vance, a man famed for becoming the captain of the knights at a young age. A hero in the hearts of all citizens. Lua had first met him when she just started working at the temple. When he requested healing from her, it failed initially, making her doubt her ability to succeed in serving as a saint. But it was then that he grabbed her shoulder, saying, "No one is perfect from the start." His encouragement was a beacon of hope, and from then on, his words became a pillar for her. She saw him as the captain of the knights that always worked tirelessly and felt she had to give her best as well. Arian teased that Lua was staring at him again, but also thought the two were a great match. And despite Lua questioning her worthiness, Arian promised her support. She wanted her favorite friend to be happy. Lua's feelings were likewise. She wanted Arian to tell her if she ever liked someone, and the two pinky promised on it. A few days later, the knights were rushing into the temple. Lua was horrified to see Sir Garrett was bloodied on his deathbed, defeated by a monster. The bystanders spoke of how their hero wouldn't likely survive even with healing. Lua thought of his words that had carried her, and felt if no one else could heal him, then she would. She snuck into his room and willingly gave her life away in an attempt to save him. His wounds vanished, transferring to Lua, but she was just glad he was all right now. She stumbled to her bed, falling over, and couldn't heal herself because the speed of self-recovery was too slow for the severity of these wounds. Her life flashed before her eyes, and now she wondered if she was really going to die like this. When she came to, she immediately got chastised for leaving her candidate saint's work unattended for over a month while fooling around outside the temple and getting injured. Supposedly, not a single person came to visit her. And what really struck a nerve was this woman telling her, "You shouldn't have woken up at all." Lua asked about Sir Garrett, and the woman answered that Arian had risked her life to heal him. Lua was at a loss for words, but she'd be at more of a loss hearing Arian and Sir Garrett got engaged just a few days ago. Lua rushed out, completely confused by everything. The other saints spoke of how the two were a perfect match, especially since Garrett had slain so many monsters as of recent, with Arian healing him all the while. They called her a true saintess. In comparison, they rebuked Lua for supposedly sneaking out of the temple to fool around with men, claiming they even heard her duties were fulfilled by Arian as well. They cackled over Lua's shamelessness, despite her innocent demeanor, adding that these rumors were true because they'd heard it from Arian herself. Lua just couldn't believe it. Panting and out of breath, she reached out to Arian, asking if there was some kind of misunderstanding. Arian was supposed to be her best friend, but Arian shrieked, pushing on to Garrett, pleading for his help, and he scowled at Lua, pushing her down and asking what she wanted to do to his Ari. He had heard everything from his fiancée, that Lua pretended to be her friend while using and bullying her. He thought Lua was simply disgusting. Lua stuttered, trying to say she was the one who healed him, but she'd only be responded with his fierce glare. Now she understood. No matter how she explained, no one would believe her. With Garrett taking his leave, Arian grabbed Lua's face, saying, Pathetic, Lua. I've always wanted to see you like this. As a toy for the pastime, you've done well. But you'll forgive me, right? Look, after all, we're best friends. Guys, I gotta stop for a sec. I hate Ariane so much. I'm losing my mind. Holy! The couple walked away, leaving Lua to get drenched in the pouring rain. Now Lua could finally see she herself was the fool in this relationship. Then her hair went from blonde to white. Some other men broke out in laughter, lightly kicking her a bit for spacing out here, asking why she was in a daze in a place like this. They pulled at her hair, so she coldly responded, "Don't touch me." She grabbed the man's wrist, suddenly inflicting it with a wound and causing him to ache so badly, the men were scared off. This power, contrary to healing, was one she always kept deep in her heart. Hit with the final straw that broke the camel's back, she smirked, supposing this would be much more useful than healing. Thunder struck as she uttered she wouldn't heal anymore, and a man watching from the corner behind was delighted to have witnessed it all. Several hundred years ago, when a deadly plague ravaged the kingdom of Zed, there was a legend that a single girl saved the people with her healing powers. In order to enshrine Luce as a goddess, a temple was built in her name. Just like Luce, the temple gathered multiple people with healing powers, and they were treated as Saintess candidates. They used their abilities to serve the people. Healing abilities were said to appear mainly amongst noble women by the time they turned 10. Exceptional Saintess candidates were formally appointed as Saintesses and attained a status equal to that of royalty. However, the seat of Saintess had remained vacant for the past 10 years. That was because, for a long time, there weren't any suitable candidates. Before becoming an orphan, Lua once had ambitions of becoming a Saintess. She looked at her luscious white hair, recalling that it had been several days since the color changed, and it never returned. Was it from hitting the limits of her power and almost dying, or the emotional shock? She pondered this, but the memories of betrayal still haunted her mind. Lua wondered where she should go from here. Her fellow saints approached, one of them loudly calling her a defective saintess. She mocked Lua's white hair, but Lua didn't react to the provocations. Enraged, the saint slammed the table, yelling, "Are you even listening?" Lua let them know that defective saintess wasn't her name, so of course, it couldn't be her they were referring to. Every time she was bullied by these girls, Ariane would swoop in to protect her. But now, Lua understood Ariane surely led the bullying all along. Lua was made to believe they were best friends, just for Ariane to mock her. Still, the girl couldn't stand Lua's attitude. She slapped the teacup away from her hands, telling her that the rose garden was no place for her to be. The other girls cackled, but Lua glared at them, coldly replying, "Would you shut up for a second?" She grabbed the girl's wrist, unleashing a burning pain that made the saint scream in agony. This was the other ability she had kept hidden for so long. This power allowed her to take on other people's injuries and illnesses. She always healed it with self-recovery. However, she could also transfer the pain she had taken on to someone else. Lua never thought she'd use this terrifying power again, ever since she accidentally used it on her mother. The girl screamed and cried. The pain was just too unbearable, and she didn't care who. She just wanted someone to heal her. But the other saintesses were too afraid, arguing over who should heal her. All Lua had done was given the girl a mild burn. Besides, she had taken on this level of pain many times before. With the snap of her fingers, the burn was gone. The girls were confused about what just happened. Lua felt these girls who mocked and looked down on her couldn't imagine the pain she had endured. On the way to her room, Lua was shocked being approached by the second prince, Sven Zed Crown, a man known for his sharp mind. So perfectly handsome, it was almost frightening. Sven wanted to speak with Lua about the darkness hidden within the temple. She was confused, but then the prince suddenly asked her to join him and take revenge. Arriving at the royal courtyard, Sven explained he cleared out the place, so no one could overhear their conversation. Lua then asked what he meant by the darkness within the temple. However, Sven stopped her, telling her to address him casually, but she hadn't agreed to work with him just yet. In response, he chuckled slightly. He then asked what she thought about the magical beast attacks that had been spreading in the past year, implying that it was a strange occurrence. Originally, magic beasts should have only existed in forests and wastelands of other nations. Until now, not a single one had ever been seen in the kingdom. Lua assumed someone was guiding the magic beasts and making them attack people, and Sven believed this someone was none other than the temple's highest authority, the High Priest. Lua slammed the table in disbelief. When her family perished from a mysterious illness, the high priest came to get her after hearing about her mysterious powers. Swen also explained that the high priest planned to boost the temple's support amongst the people. Ever since the attacks began, the Saintess candidates have been healing more people, shifting the people's focus entirely on the temple. He added that the priest was supposedly planning to rule the kingdom and surpass the royal family. Lua couldn't believe something so absurd. However, there were also 3 noble families that made large donations to the temple, who were also involved in this. The leading amongst them was the house of Count Treviars. Hearing this, Lua's heart sank. That was Ariane's family. Was her former best friend involved as well? Swen presumed the priest was likely working with a foreign clan that could control magical beasts, a western clan known as Yuan. Despite Prince Swen's investigations, the high priest wouldn't let him find conclusive evidence. This is where he needed Lua's help to expose his crimes, saying she had the qualification and power, more precisely, her pain-inflicting ability. Lua didn't expect her ability to be figured out so soon, thinking no one had noticed. However, Swen would tell her she could use this chance to get her revenge on Ariane. But, being a bit skeptical of his story, she requested time to think about it. As she walked through the halls, she thought if Swen's words were true, then it was something that could never be forgiven. Even then, she couldn't make the wrong judgment. She was no longer the same foolish girl who couldn't see the truth. And so, she sought the truth for herself. Suddenly, she heard soft voices speaking in the garden. Ariane promised to always help Garrett, no matter the kind of injuries he suffered, and he embraced his fiancée, promising to protect her as well. Seeing how lovey they were, Lua sank into despair. Fuming, she stormed out, but was stopped as the high priest called out to her. The high priest, Flix Ronhartz, born into a family that served the temple for generations. He was responsible for overseeing the candidate saintesses, known as a gentle and courteous person beloved by everyone. He reprimanded Lua's unauthorized outing, telling her to reflect on it. Although Lua no longer intended to offer explanations about the absurd rumors spread by Ariane, she couldn't help but wonder if Flix was truly the mastermind behind the incidents. All this time, Lua never took any breaks like her cohorts. The high priest saw this as natural and said to her, "Lua, your abilities are inferior to that of other candidate saintesses, so you need to work twice as hard. This is for your own good." Wow. Masterclass in gaslighting. Get a girl who's an orphan, make her work harder than the others by saying it's good for her. Thinking about it now, Lua wondered if this was really for her own good. She decided to investigate the matter thoroughly. She arrived at the royal castle's library, amazed by the astonishing collection of books. She grabbed one, hoping to find information about the Yuan tribe within. First, she focused on the ethnic characteristics of Western nations. They had golden eyes and brown skin, especially the Yuan tribe. Yuan was a minority tribe that dwelled deep in the forests. They seemingly possessed the ability to control magical beasts. Their distinguishing features included a unique language and a scale-shaped tattoo on their necks. Prince Swen approached Lua with a cheerful and friendly demeanor, but she wondered why he was acting so friendly towards her. Afterwards, she sadly informed him that she hadn't found anything about the high priest yet. Swen then introduced Lua to his trusted subordinate, Shiji Rubin. One look at him, and the resemblance to the Western nations was undeniable. He wasn't Yuan, but grew up in humble neighborhoods around there, apparently, and also learned the language of the Yuan tribe. With a slight bow, Rubin accepted Swen's orders to assist Lua. She was amazed by Rubin's loyalty. It was unusual and rare for a foreigner to become a royal advisor. Just before he turned to leave, the prince warned her the high priest will likely make his move under the cover of the night. Now, he wanted to watch and see if Lua was truly his goddess. That night, Lua snuck out under a cloak to investigate, following the prince's advice. If someone saw her, it would surely spark rumors, but she didn't care anymore. Walking past the window, she caught a figure of someone by the corner of her eye. She quickly put out her candle and followed quietly. Soon, she arrived at the Tower of Prayer, which was scheduled for demolition. Lua then saw Flix's aide speaking to someone in a foreign language. She caught a glimpse of the tattoo on the foreigner's neck and could understand part of the language, thanks to Rubin. The aide led the foreigner into the tower, where Flix was already waiting. Lua's throat tightened when she saw the high priest. But no, she needed to see the truth with her own eyes. First, she had to deal with the guard. Her ability could only be activated through physical touch, and in this situation, she had no choice. Lua walked up to Flix's aide, posing, I'm a new maid at the temple. I got lost, and asked how to get to the maid's dormitory. The aide paused for a moment before pointing her in the direction of the dormitory, and as Lua thanked him, she grabbed his hand, inflicting a pain so great it felt like his head was splitting, and he knocked out. Then she snapped her fingers, healing him while entering. Inside, Flix praised the foreigner for unleashing the monsters on Mereni village. And just like that, Lua discovered the truth. The high priest wasn't innocent. But then, her eyes shifted. There was someone else in the room. Her heart dropped, seeing Ariane as well. Ariane complained that Flix hadn't made her saintess yet, and Flix replied that their plan had only just begun. He also revealed he was the one who arranged her engagement to Garrett. Ariane believed only a revered hero like Garrett was worthy of her as a saintess, yet knew there was always a fool who dared to have a crush on him. She continued to berate Lua, mocking her feelings and calling her an incompetent, broken saintess, and that it was disgusting that Lua ever thought of her as a friend. Lua forced herself to remain silent as the words pierced her heart. Flix added she was only useful as the perfect puppet. Once their plans succeeded, the other candidate saintesses would become disposable tools as well. Just as they were about to speak their true intentions, Lua's elbow knocked against a wooden box. The sound was enough for the foreigner to notice. Lua covered her mouth, but she was going to get exposed, and he was coming closer. As Lua panicked, Ruben pulled her close and let loose a swarm of rats to cause a distraction. Ariane screamed as they scurried near, shouting, "I absolutely hate ugly, filthy things," and urged the foreigner to do something. Ariane's words echoed through Lua's mind, and she wondered if Ariane saw her the same as those rats. Lua escaped with Ruben and thanked him sincerely. He'd been secretly watching over her and the high priest under Prince Swen's orders. Swen soon appeared, casually noting how beautiful the moon was. He was impressed that Lua dared to sneak in and spy on the high priest, but catching them in a secret meeting wasn't enough. Ruben noted that they needed to gather solid evidence of their wrongdoings. For that, the prince asked Lua to join him again in exposing their enemies and seeking revenge. Remembering their faces, Lua agreed, swearing to never forgive Flix and Ariane. The following morning, she admitted that sneaking into the secret meeting was a daring move, even for her. Then, she saw a silver key glowing on her table. That night, the prince gave her the key, explaining it opened a hidden conservatory in the courtyard he often used. The place would serve as their meeting spot. He asked her to come at 3 o'clock the next day without being seen. Swen then planted a kiss on Lua's hand. She thought the prince was a little dramatic, but she chose to trust him. She was set on stopping the high priest and Ariane, no matter the cost. Later, she arrived at the conservatory. As she opened the door, Swen greeted her with a dazzling smile. As Lua sat down, Ruben poured her some tea. The prince explained that only a handful of people knew about his conservatory. It had been a secret hideout since he was a child. When Lua asked if it was really okay to bring her here, Swen replied, "Of course. We're accomplices now. We have to share our secrets." Since they were now working together, the prince asked Lua to speak more casually so they could get along better. He also said she was free to use this place however she liked, and invited her to come read sometime, knowing how much she loved books. Lua was flush, realizing the prince had noticed her reaction in the library. He really didn't miss a thing. She agreed to his request and called him Swen instead of Your Highness, which made his eyes light up with joy. After that, Lua asked about their strategy, and Swen pointed to a book beside her. As she flipped it open, he asked if she knew the man in it, and of course she did. The man's name was Roz Desmond, a known womanizer viscount. There was no one in the noble society who didn't know his name. A self-acknowledged and widely recognized playboy, rumors about him never stopped. Desmond's diplomatic skills seemed solid, but his bad reputation far outweighed his achievements. Though he had a wife and son, he was constantly having affairs and living apart from them. Prince Swen then said Desmond was one of the nobles working with the high priest and his allies. With his diplomatic skills, he had been privately exchanging goods with the Western country, but these public deals were just camouflage. A portion of the goods sent by Viscount Desmond was likely being secretly passed on to the Yuan clan. Lua surmised the clan controlled the magic beasts to receive rewards. Swen praised her for her keen intuition, and explained that after the Yuan clan tamed the beasts, Desmond probably arranged their import into the country. Thinking of all the victims, Lua trembled with anger. Swen suggested digging into Desmond's trade records to find solid proof of his crimes, evidence that could expose the high priest's schemes. Noticing they needed the documents, Lua asked how to get them. Swen showed a letter and explained that a ball was planned for Desmond's birthday, and as royalty, he had been invited to attend as a representative. Lua thought the Viscount seemed selfish to abandon his family. Swen chuckled. His earrings sparkled, drawing Lua's attention. He asked if something was wrong. but she brushed it off. Lua wondered if he intended to sneak into the ball, and Swen replied, "Yes, just the two of us." Then, kneeling, he asked, "Will you dance with me?" A total show-off, but Lua accepted gladly if it meant revenge. Meanwhile, Garrett was seated when Ariane sneakily covered his eyes. He recognized her instantly. She rushed here to tell him something important and presented a letter inviting him to the Viscount's birthday ball, promising it would be luxurious and amazing. Garrett didn't care for such fancy events, but Ariane begged him sweetly, saying she really wanted to go. Swayed by her charm, he gave in. A soldier brought his injured partner to the captain, blaming a mistake during sparring. Seeing the broken leg, Garrett knew they had to act fast. He was relieved Ariane was nearby. She could heal him right away. But she was annoyed, thinking healing was such a chore, and it had to happen while she was enjoying time with Garrett. Putting on a sweet face, she said, "I'm sorry. I really wanted to help, but I've been using my power too much lately." Once again, Garrett gave in to her sweet charm and told the soldier to have another Saintess candidate heal the injured one. Concerned, he hoped the wound would heal properly, and Ariane assured him it would be fine. When she said it was a small matter, Garrett's eyes shook. She talked about wanting a new dress, but he was stunned that she would call his subordinate's injury a small thing. Still, he thought maybe she was just excited about the ball and found her adorable. The high priest then called over Ariane, and she bid Garrett farewell. As she left, his smile disappeared. With the matter settled that she would be infiltrating the ball, Lewis spent some time gathering information about Desmond in her own way. However, she forgot about a dress and didn't have anything suitable to wear. The one decent outfit she had was ruined by pointless bullying. And there was also a time she gave Ariane her ring. In the end, Lua never saw Ariane wear it. Wondering what to do, she decided to head into town. Saintess candidates were allotted some freely usable money from the portion of donations gathered by the temple. If she applied and it got approved, she would be able to receive it. But the one managing the funds was the high priest. He would always find a reason to reject her applications, and they'd never been approved once. Suddenly, a maid barged in with a suitcase in hand. The luggage was addressed to Lua by Ruben, so she figured it must be from Swen. The maid began complaining about delivering the suitcase to Lua and accused her of seducing Ruben, a man who was quite popular amongst the maids. Lua had the urge to inflict pain on her, but she had to keep her power secret. However, she stopped the maid, giving her a piercing glare and making it clear she insulted both her and Ruben. Lua demanded an apology, but the maid saw no reason to. So, Lua explained that Ruben was Sven's loyal servant, and for her to seduce someone like that was clearly an insult. She called out the maid for being so desperate to insult her, dragging the prince's aide's name into it. Lua reminded her that she was just a maid, while she herself was a Saintess candidate, and told her to know her place. The maid clenched her teeth in frustration, unable to talk back. So, she offered her deepest apologies and was dismissed. Lua felt a lot better after that. She went ahead to open the luggage and was met with a sparkling, beautiful dress. There were even lovely shoes and accessories. Swen had chosen one of the capital's most sought-after tailors, the same who made dresses for Saintess candidates, to make Lua's gown. He personally selected accessories he believed would suit her, hoping she'd be pleased. After hearing she'd been overworked, he also asked the temple to give her an extended vacation. If anyone dared to question her, she simply had to show them the permit. Reading the letter, Lua felt touched by the prince's care. All the dresses and accessories were beautiful. All that was left were earrings. Just then, she recalled she still had one. She picked up a box from the cupboard, revealing just one pair, while the other was missing. Still, it was a precious memento from her mother. She recalled dropping the other pair when she was much younger, and wondered if the girl from back then was doing well. It was the first time she had used her powers on someone outside her family. Shortly after that, her family died from a mysterious illness, and by the time she returned from playing outside, she was horrified finding their corpses. But now, she wasn't powerless anymore, and was determined to succeed with the mission. The day of the ball finally came, and while Swen went ahead due to his position, he arranged a carriage for Lua and assigned Ruben as her escort. Ruben tried to make sure she was alright because Swen had entrusted him with her safety, and she thought Ruben to be expressionless and quiet, so it was awkward with just the two of them. She kind of missed Swen's talkativeness. Seeing the moon hidden behind the clouds, Lua got an ominous feeling. Soon after, they reached the venue. Swen greeted her for looking effortlessly elegant. Lua could see the grace of royalty in him. Standing beside someone so radiant, she felt a bit overwhelmed. Swen, as well, admitted that the dress and accessories he picked out made her beauty stand out. They made her beautiful white hair shine even more. Lua thanked the prince, but gently told him to ease up on the flattery. She didn't want him to force it. Her hair had once been blonde, but after everything, it turned white. She gave a bittersweet smile as she told him her hair was weird. But Swen asked who said it was weird, adding that anyone who thought so clearly lacked an eye for real beauty. He took her hair in his hand and said it was proof of the strength it took to endure the pain she went through, and added that it was something to be proud of, not mocked. Lua's eyes filled with tears. She never imagined anyone would say something so kind about her hair. Then, the prince joked that all three of them, her, him, and Ruben, had matching hair. Lua laughed, teasing that he was making Ruben uncomfortable. Swen was glad to see her finally smile and took her hand to lead her inside. Inside the hall, Swen showed Lua the man surrounded by ladies, saying it was Viscount Desmond. After greeting him earlier, the prince noted that while Desmond seemed shallow, he was surprisingly sharp. As the rumors went, the Viscount seemed weak when it came to women. Lua wanted to get closer, but Swen told her there was no need to rush. They would move when the time was right. One of the nobles noticed the prince and greeted him cheerfully, taking away his attention. Since Swen was busy with the guests, Lua had to move in his place. Observing carefully, she noticed a waitress who looked pale and could tell the lady was troubled by something and tried talking to her. Before she could say a word, Ariane's voice cut through the moment. Lua turned and saw her former best friend, Anne Garrett, standing before her. The two girls hadn't talked face to face since the last incident. Lua couldn't believe Ariane was just going to act normal on the surface after what she'd done. Ariane noticed Lua was alone and began mocking her. So, Lua explained she was invited through a contact, but the teasing continued. Ariane called her a grandma for having white hair, but Lua stayed composed, saying she liked it better than her old hair. Garrett told Ariane to come with him, saying she didn't need to be kind to someone who had bullied her. But still curious, Ariane wanted to know if Lua truly had a partner. She then asked if her accessories and dress came from him. Lua got scared as Ariane eagerly reached for her earrings. At that moment, Swen showed up by her side, and she was relieved to see him. Ariane greeted the prince gracefully and asked if he was Lua's partner, which he confirmed. She then questioned what kind of connection there could be between the second prince and a mere orphaned Saintess candidate. And Swen clarified Lua originally came from a baron's family. He recently discovered this, as he was involved in activities that supported orphans. Finding out Lua's painful background, Swen requested her support in his activities, which explained their connection. Of course, Lua thought this was a surface-level reason the prince had prepared, so things wouldn't seem unnatural. One of the noble ladies explained Lua was from the restaurant baron family that had suddenly died from an illness. The nobles felt the prince was doing good, and they accepted the story quite well. Lua thought steering things towards gaining sympathy was the right choice. And of course, Swen was casually boosting his image at the same time. Afterwards, Ariane told Swen she wanted both of them to get along more in the future. As she left, Garrett rushed to follow, but was stopped by the prince, who reminded him that his father was an excellent knight. Swen complimented Garrett, who had also lived up to the name of hero with brilliant accomplishments, but added he had horrible taste in women, leaving Garrett shocked. All the while, Ariane was boiling with anger, refusing to let things end like this. Later, Swen asked Lua to dance, but she wasn't really good at it. Seeing the prince really wanted to dance with her, she agreed, but only if a song came on that was good. Swen's eyes sparked with joy, and he told her it was a promise. Unable to wait, he considered using his authority to change the song, but Lua teased him about it. Suddenly, she saw the waitress from earlier holding a knife, and she quickly alerted Swen. The maid was heading towards Viscount Desmond, who had no people shielding him. As Swen stopped the waitress, she panicked, but he asked her to explain the situation. Soon after, she introduced herself as Charlotte Mayo, saying she used to work in Desmond's mansion. Despite Desmond being a womanizer, he paid a good salary, and Charlotte needed money to send to her poor family. She worked for 2 years, and nothing happened during that time. But once her marriage was decided, Charlotte had to quit being a servant. She was engaged to her childhood friend named Alan, who ran a bakery on the outskirts of the royal capital. Hearing this, Prince Swen believed the bakery was Viola. He'd visited before and loved their freshly baked cream buns. He would even sometimes go on walks in town to see how the people lived. Charlotte was happy to help her fiancé run the shop, but when she informed Desmond of her resignation, she was invited to his private room. And sadly, as she entered, Desmond forced himself on her. Charlotte informed Alan, and he became furious, confronting the Viscount and demanding an apology. But Desmond would sabotage Alan's business in retaliation. Hence, why Charlotte was eager to kill Desmond, even if it meant her own death. She thought if the Viscount was gone, Alan could run his business peacefully, and feeling overwhelmed, she cried bitterly. But Lua comforted her, assuring they would do something about the situation. Naturally, Swen was more than willing to help, and Lua swore to pay back all the pain Desmond had caused. She planned to get close to Desmond and steal the trade documents, while handling Charlotte's matter as well. Just then, a song Lua knew began to play. Swen's eyes lit up, and he whisked her onto the dance floor. The other ladies admired their steps, everyone except Ariane. The prince told Lua to smile more, but she was too nervous. Then, he caught sight of a sparkling earring, and at that moment, he knew it was her. Back when Prince Swen was younger, he snuck out to wander around the city, and even punished a few thugs harassing women with his blade. Everything had gone smoothly, until he got injured and lost his guards. This made him feel like he hadn't matured at all. He thought about going back to the castle before people became worried, and quickly realized no one would worry about him. After all, he is the second prince, referred to as the child of misfortune. When he was born, his condition was far more critical than the first prince's. His mother, the queen, nearly died from severe blood loss, but thanks to the Sanctus back then, his life was saved. This is how he earned the moniker, Child of Misfortune. There were even rumors claiming he had darker crimson eyes because he sucked his mother's blood during birth. And that's why everyone believed his elder brother, the first prince, would succeed the throne. However, Prince Swen was never interested in the throne either way. Still, he felt the need to use his abilities to prove these absurd judgments wrong. With determination, he chose an approach to broaden his horizons, different from his brothers. Hence why he came to explore the city. Yet, his parents gave all their attentions to his older brother. Suddenly, a young Lua would approach him, concerned about his injuries. She happily offered to heal him, though it would be painful for her later. Swen would tell her not to worry, citing that they were minor, and no one would worry about him anyways. She then burst, "I would worry about you," and unleashed her powers, completely healing his wounds. Soon after, her mother came for her and she left. This was the first time someone had treated Swen with genuine kindness. It felt like he had received salvation from the goddess. He then picked up one of Lua's earrings she left behind and wondered if they would meet again. That encounter became Swen's sustaining force. Now no one dared call him the child of misfortune anymore, because he gained the power to silence them all. While searching for Lua with scarce leads, he inadvertently discovered the temple's secrets. At first, Lua was simply an ally, but the more time they spent together, the more Swen wished she was the girl he met then. He was grateful that she was the goddess who saved him, because he always wanted to see her again. He also recalled how she took his pain to heal him back then, and believed her kind nature had remained unchanged. If this kindness would hinder her vengeance, the prince would gladly dirty his hands for her. He blamed himself for finding her too late, causing her to endure so much pain. But now, it was his turn to support her. He would become her sword and shield, and would be by her side till the very end. Everyone complimented the prince's dance, including Desmond, but he called Swen stingy for not introducing him to the white lily by his side. Seeing Desmond approach them, Lua had to reel him in with this chance. However, she wondered how to approach being alone with him. Her charm resembled a beautiful flower with thorns, and Desmond was eager to pluck. He softly held Lua's face, asking for her name, but Swen would kindly ask him to remove his hand. After all, Lua was still his companion for the night. However, Lua wanted to handle this herself, and told the prince not to worry. She would then introduce herself to Desmond, saying she hoped to establish a stronger bond with him, and asked to see him somewhere private to properly celebrate his birthday. Though flustered, the Viscount asked her to come to his room after the next dance, so they could enjoy some quality time. Meanwhile, Swen was boiling with anger. He took Lua's hand and wiped off the spot Desmond had touched. When he asked where she learned to seduce, she answered from the Viscount's entourage. Still, Swen was frustrated that she'd be confronting Desmond alone. The prince then offered to prepare what Lua would need, and said he would stay by in case of any trouble. With the sparkling charm, Lua said she trusted him, and Swen felt she was more of a wicked temptress than a saint. Shortly after, Lua entered Desmond's bedchamber and set her focus on finding the documents. He offered her a drink, but she kindly declined. Suddenly, he pushed her to the bed, pressing against her and questioning why she was approaching him. Scared, she wondered if the Viscount had figured them out. Desmond questioned if Lua was after status, money, or looking for a powerful backer. However, she felt relieved that she and Swen's plans weren't exposed. He furiously demanded an answer, squeezing her hand tightly. But for Lua to activate her ability, her palm had to make contact with the other person's bare skin. In order to make him lower his guard, she told the Viscount that she sought exhilaration. As a Saintess candidate, life in the temple was nothing but restrictive and dull. This was why she lacked spine-tingling excitement. She claimed with the Viscount, she could enjoy such things. Desmond chuckled. Although he liked girls who struggled just like Charlotte, Lua was the kind he had always wanted to have. Charlotte, being one of his former servants, refused his advances because she had a fiancé. But the Viscount didn't care, calling her fiancé low-born commoner trash. He would tear Lua's dress, and she used the chance to place her palm on his neck, unleashing her powers. He then felt his whole body itching, and Lua claimed she had poisoned his drink. She also threatened if he didn't drink the antidote she had, he would die. But of course, this was a bluff. The itch was simply a type of skin condition she had healed in the past, incapable of killing him. Scared for his life, Desmond demanded the antidote, but Lua asked him for trade documents with the Western Kingdom. When he refused, she started walking out, but Desmond would give in, telling her the documents were in the library, in the drawer attached to his desk. Before Lua would give the antidote, she asked him to sign an official paper. Meanwhile, Ruben scouted the area around the palace, hoping Swen and Lua would carry out the operation safely. He then caught sight of Ariane talking to a hooded figure. While wondering why she was meeting with this person, his mind flashed to something horrible. But in the midst of that, he lost sight of them. Fearing his hunch could be right, he rushed to inform Lua and Swen. Back in Desmond's room, Lua presented a bill of the damages he owed Charlotte. Desmond was shocked at the absurd amount he had to pay a servant girl. Lua then explained he was to compensate for Charlotte's fiancé and all the other victims who suffered at his hands. With no other choice, the Viscount signed the document and then demanded the antidote. But Lua would tell him there's no such thing, threatening that he would die slowly, regretting all he had done. As she left, she made it clear she had an unpleasant night with him. Desmond cried out, begging desperately because he didn't want to die. Then he passed out, and Lua undid her spell. On her way to retrieve the documents, Swen approached her, feeling glad she was safe. Seeing her ripped dress, he quickly covered her with a coat and started thinking of how to deal with Desmond. But Lua already handled that. Still, Swen wanted her to value herself more. She apologized, and her cute charm left him blushing. Moments later, they went into the library and got the trade documents, completing their objective. Ruben soon rushed in, looking out of breath. He then reported his sighting of Ariane and speculated the hooded figure was of the Yuan tribe. Ruben also feared something dangerous was inside Desmond's warehouse. Suddenly, they heard screams coming from the ballroom. They rushed in, seeing people running for their lives due to a magic beast rampaging. Lua suspected this was Ariane's work and questioned what her goal could be. On the other hand, Ariane was happily watching the chaos. Prince Swen had no doubt Ariane would commit such atrocities without hesitation. Ruben would then hand over his trusted sword. Lua feared how dangerous it would be for the prince to fight the beast alone, but he boasted about his skill, claiming the Knight Commander might not be able to defeat him. Swen then ordered Ruben to find the Yuan tribesman and apprehend him. He speculated the target might be the one controlling the magic beast. The prince then handed the documents to Lua, telling her to take it and flee, but she refused to abandon him, admitting she might be a burden in this fight. She still believed her ability would be worth testing here. As Swen thought about how to handle the beast, he could see Garrett trying to evacuate everyone, but it was sluggish. So, he decided to lure the beast to an open space himself, but Lua would halt him, demanding he listen to her strategy first. Hearing her plan, Swen refused to let her take the risks she was suggesting, but she claimed revenge couldn't be achieved through logic alone. Lua always exceeded his expectations, so Swen conceded. Meanwhile, Garrett tried to calm the panicking crowd, directing them towards the rear exit, except it was too chaotic for an evacuation. The Knight Commander also didn't have his sword, thanks to Ariane, whom he needed to find. Just then, an old lady fell beside him, and the beast sighted her, rushing to attack. But Garrett would swoop in to protect her. However, Lua stood in front of the beast, making herself the target, and just as she predicted, the beast reacted to her white hair. Swen then jumped in, slicing the beast with his sword. While it was weakened, Lua used her ability to finish it off by inflicting hangover syndrome. Luckily, her ability worked on beasts too. It all went according to plan. Given Ariane's personality, Lua was sure she'd have the beast attack her. Even if one could control magic beasts, there's no way they could order them to distinguish targets. And just as Lua suspected, the beast was ordered to attack the silver-haired woman. Everyone would then applaud Swen and Lua for their bravery. Garrett found himself staring at Lua, seeing her in a new light. Ariane, on the other hand, was upset at her failed plans. Initiating beast attacks on noble estates was part of her scheme with the High Priest. Viscount Desmond's manor held a warehouse to hide these beasts, and so the plan was for Ariane to cure the injured, securing their devotion to the temple. She could have crushed Lua as well, but decided to move on to the next plan. Before the Yuan tribesmen could escape, Reuben would apprehend him on Swen's orders. Holding a blade to the culprit's neck, he demanded him to confess all about his master. The beast's attack resulted in minor injuries, and not only was the Yuan tribesman captured, but Desmond's crimes were also exposed to the nobles. The Viscount was then arrested on the spot. He had exposed his backers. The High Priest and his cohorts' wrongdoings would be exposed. But things didn't go so smoothly. Several days later, Lua couldn't believe the carriage transporting Desmond and the Yuan tribesman was attacked by bandits. While the tribesman was killed, Desmond survived through sheer luck, but his mind was totally shattered. Even in prison, he remained mind-broken. Lua believed the bandits were sent by the High Priest, and Swen agreed. However, he also believed Ariane must have prepared countermeasures beforehand. Regardless, they had thwarted one of their schemes, and compensation had also been arranged for Charlotte. Before they could proceed to their next plan, Swen informed Lua that she'd been summoned by his father. She freaked out, realizing he meant the king. In his office, Prince Sarid came across an incident report from Viscount Desmond's estate. Seeing Swen had helped resolve it, he felt his younger brother was up to something again. Diana would then step in, but before she addressed her reason for coming, she pointed out Sarid's wrinkles on his forehead, warning his retainers would be terrified because of his expression. She advised him to smile a bit more, and perhaps take a cue from Swen. Sarid took her words as though she implied Swen would make a better king, so she begged him to stop becoming so self-deprecating. After all, she was his fiancée, but he was still pouty regardless. More importantly, she let him know how Swen and Lua would be coming over the next day. Though she looked forward to it, Sarid seemed aggravated while staring at Lua's photo. Diana also felt the person who was most looking forward to it was Louis, with him saying Lua was important to him. Meanwhile, Ariane was throwing a tantrum. After the magical beast attack failed, the High Priest told her not to act on her own and to stay quiet for a while. He was also angry with her. She made sure to attack the carriage earlier and erase all evidence. So, she believed everything was fine. But lately, Garrett had been so absent-minded. No matter what she said to him, she believed she did nothing wrong, and that this was all Louis' fault. Just as she was about to die from boredom, a maid came in with a message from the High Priest. It was about the upcoming annual birthday festival all Saintess candidates were to take part in. She suddenly got an idea, and smirked deviously while asking for more details, feeling this was another chance for her plans to succeed. The next day, the High Priest cursed. It seemed Ariane was trying to ruin the meticulous plan he had put together. His assistant tried to calm him down, assuring she would follow orders during the birthday festival. Yet, the High Priest had recommended her as the Rose Princess again this year. But he never expected Swen and Lua to actually defeat the magic beast. He suspected the prince had caught on to a scheme. With Desmond no longer usable, the magic beast tactic was finished. Because of this, the High Priest decided he would accelerate his plans. Garrett then came in looking for him. Startled, the High Priest moved to cover the documents on his table. The Knight Commander wanted to ask questions about Lua, but seeing it wasn't urgent, the priest asked him to come back another day. Garrett was now left wondering if Lua was really as terrible as Ariane said. Lua never imagined the day would come when she'd appear before the king. Swen told her His Majesty was rewarding her for the Desmond incident, and had even bought her a new dress for the occasion. Lua hoped she wouldn't stand out too much with it, but she could feel everyone's eyes on her. They all admired her stunning dress, and spoke of her exploits with Prince Swen. Some even thought she would be selected as the Rose Princess for the festival. She was glad that even though they were talking, at least it was nothing bad. The festival of Goddess Luce's birthday was a celebration of her divine birth, held nationwide every year. Traditionally, the lead role belonged to the current Saintess, but with the seat empty, two outstanding ones were chosen from the Saintess candidates, selected one by the temple's side and royal palace side to stand before the people and perform ceremonial duties. The two were given the title of Rose Princess. The other Saintess candidates were stuck with backstage work. Lua was always stuck with chores, while Ariane had been selected as Rose Princess for 2 years in a row. Since the royal court always nominated someone of high birth, Lua believed it had nothing to do with her, and Swen wouldn't bring up her name apart from matters concerning revenge. On her way to the audience chamber, someone poured a bucket of water on her. Lua saw the shadow of a woman. Seeing it was deliberate, she wondered if the culprit was Ariane. Still, it would take a while for her dress to dry. Prince Sarid would then approach her, furious at how unsightly she looked in the royal garden. Lua was feeling anxious now. She had heard the first prince was such an exceptional person, but noticed he had such cold eyes. She apologized for her unsightly appearance, refused to tell him the truth, fearing it would drag down Swen. But I don't know why it would do that. She then stated it was her carelessness that got her drenched. But Sarid found it unacceptable, deciding to judge it himself before it reached his father's eyes. As he reached for Lua, Diana would stop him immediately, calling him out for cornering a woman. Sarid was like a little puppy when Diana scolded him. She would then introduce herself as Diana Peridot, making Lua realize she was going to be the next queen. Lua quickly apologized for her rudeness and introduced herself. Diana then mentioned there was something she wanted to thank her for. But first, Lua needed to get changed. Diana invited Lua to her room. Even though Sarid protested, she insisted it was fine. Besides, Lua was someone she owed a great debt to. Lua would get dressed in a dazzling red gown. Considering it was one of Diana's old dresses, Lua felt it was too much of an honor. Diana then figured the dress that got wet was a gift from Prince Swen. She had heard they danced together and believed they were getting along quite well. Diana boasted about being the information expert of high society. When it came to nobility, there was nothing she didn't know. She then revealed the white-haired lady, whom Lua saved from the magic beast back then, was her grandmother. Diana thanked Lua with all her heart. She had also wanted to introduce Lua to someone, but was sure they'd meet later. Moments later, Lua headed to the audience chamber, appearing before the king. He praised her for subduing a magical beast and taking part in capturing the ringleader. The king then offered to grant her any wish she desired. She requested to receive the former restaurant baron family's estate along with its rights. The king pointed out that the mansion barely had any value. However, it still did to Lua. It was the home where she lived with her family, and she simply wanted it back. The estate had stood empty for years, and when a noble residence loses its owner, it was placed under royal custody for 10 years, whereafter it would be destroyed. This year was the 10th year for her family estate. It had nothing to do with revenge. Rather, it was a small dream Lua had once given up on. The king then agreed to grant her wish, although he actually expected her to ask him to approve her engagement with Swen. The second prince was usually cautious, but whenever he spoke of Lua, he was unusually at ease, which made the queen concerned about it. Lua, on the other hand, felt such a request was too presumptuous for someone of her standing. She answered she'd never be a proper match, but wondered why her chest hurt. With that settled, she was dismissed. Being at the palace already, Lua considered stopping at the library. At that moment, someone would push her off the stairs, and she could only catch a glimpse of the culprit's necklace. It was the same woman who poured water over her. Unable to keep her balance, she feared this was the end. That's when Swen would come just in time to catch her. He never imagined she'd come falling from the sky. Flustered, she kindly asked him to put her down. But before that, he asked if she really just slipped, and why she wasn't wearing the dress he'd given her. If she didn't answer properly, he wasn't going to put her down. Sensing a dark aura around him, she then explained what really happened. After hearing her, Swen suspected there was a third party that was out for Lua. He thought about assigning Ruben to guard her, but she argued he didn't have to go that far. Until recently, things like this were an everyday occurrence for her. With warm eyes, Swen noted how she had gotten used to pain, and told her it was okay to say when it hurts. While she was taken in by his charm, Louis was shocked, stumbling upon her. He rushed, embracing her tightly, and saying how badly he wanted to see her again. Seeing the way he hugged her, Swen felt a sharp pain in his chest. Feeling a bit uncomfortable, Lua told Louis to calm down. Then, Prince Swen would drag him away from her. With a sinister smile, he asked Lua who this guy was. Louis then immediately apologized for not noticing the prince earlier. Lua then explained Louis was a former employee of her household. When she was little, he looked after her like an older brother. He was from a small country in the east, and an heir to its top merchant family. But he had absolutely no business and talent. He ran away from his father, who tried to force the succession on him, and by fate, he happened to be hired by the restaurant family. Louis was good at making sweets and was very earnest. So, Louis' father took a liking to him, and made Louis her caretaker. Ever since then, she always wondered how he'd been doing. Louis explained that right after the tragic incident, his father had found where he was and took him back home to learn the business. But it turned out his sister had more business talent than him. So, she became the successor, and at last, Louis was a free man. Now, he served in the Peridot ducal household as Lady Diana's personal assistant. In any case, Lua was glad to see he was doing all right. Back home, all Louis could do was worry about her safety and curse his own uselessness. He then told Lua to prepare herself for what he was about to say. Though the death of Lua's family was vaguely dismissed as a mysterious illness, he suspected it was something deliberately orchestrated. Suddenly, some maids would interrupt, yelling about the spilled apples on the floor. Louis would quickly rush to pick them up, and Lua offered to help him, but he declined, deciding they would continue their conversation another time. Prince Swen urged Lua to leave for now, and calmly think about what Louis had said. But she was sure he wouldn't say such a thing without having solid grounds to assert it. She wondered who could have murdered her parents, and what for. The next day, the thought of her family being murdered still troubled Lua's mind. She pushed the thoughts aside for a moment, thinking about the birthday festival and who would be crowned as a Rose Princess. Hearing a knock on the door, she was surprised to meet Ruben, who had been assigned to be her personal guard by orders from Prince Swen. She felt a bit glad at how overprotective the prince was. Ruben would then hand a letter from the royal palace, and upon reading it, Lua couldn't believe what she saw. She rushed over to the secret hideout, confronting Swen about why she'd been appointed as a Rose Princess this year. However, Swen explained he didn't recommend her. It was actually Diana. Still, many supported Lua because of the Desmond case. Lua felt such a glamorous role was too much for her, but Swen then cited her becoming a Rose Princess was still part of their revenge plan. They would use this chance to publicly solidify her position. If her words carried more weight, it would strengthen their ability to expose the High Priest's misdeeds. However, the other Rose Princess candidate was Ariane. She was showcasing her lovely veil, the same one that Rose Princesses usually wore, to Garrett. He would alert her about the thugs rampaging in town, letting her know the knights had been requested to help. He needed to get to his mission quickly, but suddenly, Ariane started crying and asking if he hated her. Of course, he fell for her tricks, apologizing for his words. Meanwhile, Ariane found this all boring and unpleasant, seeing Lua was the second Rose Princess. She just wanted to find something to crush Lua soon. Swen had assigned Ruben to protect Lua, specifically as a countermeasure against Ariane. Although the High Priest wouldn't act rashly until the end of the festival, they had no idea what Ariane would do. On the other hand, the prince believed Lua was suited to be the Rose Princess, and quite eager to see her in the Rose Princess dress. Recalling how charming Swen had always been to her, Lua happily accepted to fulfill the role and prove she could earn the people's trust. Louis's words still bothered her, but she needed to focus on her duty as a Rose Princess. As they exited the observatory, they were unaware of the lady watching them, who was planning to take down Lua to make Swen all hers. Okay, now we're for sure at the end of the series. What do I think? I'm gonna be honest. I think this low-budget anime looks AI-like, even if it isn't. I feel like if they were going to give this series short episode runtime plus low-budget animation, they might as well have not done it at all. I read the manhwa to try to see if the source material was any better, but I think the story is pretty generic. Even though I was initially excited about the idea of a good girl turned bad, you know, a vicious villainess with the power to inflict destructive pain. But none of that really happens. Anyways, what do you guys think? Subscribe for more content. But for now, watch this next video. It's me, ComfyTea, and I'll see you all in the next one.